The live action part of Avatar is a little bit unusual in that it's called live action, but it's very integrated with visual effects, and it was not really a simple shoot. We basically, or Jim set the challenge for us of shooting live actors in virtual backgrounds, and we had virtual characters acting in physical sets, and both of those happening at the same time sometimes. So integrating them all together was quite complex. So we, looking at the entire movie two and three, about 18% of it had a live action quotient. Okay, there we go. Um, I'll skip past that to the next slide, which is a little bit clearer to see. This is the timeline of the film. So we started work in Auckland in May of 2017. Now, before that, all the performance capture had actually started in Los Angeles. And as well as that, the concept art department, the main art department in Los Angeles, had been working for a couple of years. So we started work in May, and the shooting went right through to December 2024. So not a quick project by any means. I will point out, though, that COVID interrupted us quite badly. We were shooting two and three together, and then when COVID struck, we went on shooting in a limited fashion, just concentrating on Avatar 2, The Way of Water. And then when we were able to continue in a larger way, we then concentrated on Avatar 3 on Fire and Ash. But you can see big project, took a while. A lot of work, 174 sets, and you can see the breakdown on the right there, that it was a reasonably large job. Um, that's a list of sets, and you'll see that we basically, things like Bridgehead, the city of Bridgehead, all those yellow sets were the components that we shot to make Bridgehead. So it's like a big complex compound set, really. Similarly, the factory ship was created by all the blue sets, and the Sea Dragon was created by all the orange sets. Um, it's a sea. Oh yes, okay. So here's a schematic of all the sets, which I'll go through quite quickly. These all have a meter cube by each set, so you can see an idea of the scale. You can see there's quite a lot of wet sets. We spent as much time building tanks as we did building sets, to be honest. So this is the template that we get from what we call the lab, which is up to now has been created in Motion Builder. Going forward, they're going to use Unreal Engine, but we're still using Motion Builder on this film. And so this is this one frame from the template where a guy has to run up these stairs and close the door. So if we can play the videos now. This was a little foam core model that we just built in the art department while we were coming up with the concept. As you can see, not particularly dramatic. And then we jumped into a larger scale Perspex model, which we tested different volumes of water and different flow rates just to get the thing looking good. Um, don't think there's a slow motion, so they take a while. This is from the camera, from the viewpoint of the camera. Yeah, when we were happy with this, we showed this to Jim and got his approval before we proceeded with the physical set, building the set. This was a good one. Another test. Yeah, quite a lot of water. Basically, two shipping containers full of water released at the same time.
All right, here
And
we
this was
go.
during the shoot. This is the actual footage from
Everyone
the shoot.
set? Set. And three, two, one, action. Cut. All right, here we go. Everyone set? Set. And three, two, one, action.
And so that was that. So this is a frame of the finished shot, which worked very well. I mean, the actor just had one job to do, which was to shut the door, and he failed. Spider was our least favorite character in that it was a very demanding job that we had to um, integrate him in with virtual characters. And I think we built about 84, 85 sets for him. Um, so that everything he touched, the terrain he stood on, and anything he touched with any part of his body was physical. Um, this is obviously at the simplest level was just a blue screen set. We decided to go with blue, not green, just because it's a little bit easier on your mind over a, 2-year shoot. Um, so this is a list of all the sets we built for Spider to put them into the movie. Um, Quite a lot. Over here you can see we actually shot some from the fourth movie because there's a time jump occurs early in that film. I just scroll through now. There's just lots of images of Spider in his set. This is the one we called Muddy Boot Prints. So you can see there that Spider's real, the terrain's real, the mud's real, the Navi is digital. Um, the sets ranged in sizes. Some of them were quite large, some of them were quite small, and they're pretty fast turnaround. We would shoot 2 or 3 of them a day. Um, Often we would only get final cameras the night before, so uh, they kept us on our toes, that's for sure. So this is a pretty typical picture here of shooting a small set. You can see Spider there on a little bit of terrain. The camera's on the right, on the techno crane. Down in the circle, you can see the monitors, and the key technical thing about shooting these Spider elements was something called simulcam, where on the left you can see what the camera is seeing at the moment. On the right is the finished frame with all the virtual world which was, animated in real time. And then the big screen up on the left, uh, so everybody could see what the final shot was supposed to look like. So using simulcam, whenever we were shooting, we would bring the virtual world and the physical world together and overlap them so they lined up perfectly and everybody knew what they were doing, or was supposed to know what they were doing. Oh, actually, I'll just go back to that one. You can see Jim there spritzing the greenery because that's the sort of thing that he won't delegate to anybody else. He likes to do himself because nobody spritz quite as well as Jim. That's just a typical terrain block. We used these things called Zulu units, which was a whole kit set. I think we had about 200 of these little shaped rostrums on wheels, and we would push them together to make the gross shape of the terrain. Um, and then do the final adjustments you can see here. So the finished line of the terrain is produced by the plywood and then sculpted to make the shape and then covered with rock, which would either be hard or soft according to what was happening to it. And then that would be painted and then dressed with dirt and plants. And then often there'd be actual dressing there, all kind of, Navi shit, as we call it, woven baskets and shells and stuff. It's just a general view of the studio with the getting ready for one of the sets. This is interesting. This is from Fire and Ash from the final sequence, and it's a floating rock with vines on it. And it was just as simple as that, a little rock set that the actor stood on, and it was just animated. It was just a simple lollipop rig, really, um, which was then comped in. So the ecran, flying the ecrans, here's a frame, and we had a buck, a full-size buck that was on a tiny mow base. And that's how the flying was done. Spider falling down a hill, we couldn't work out how steep to make the hill to make the stunt work. So we built the set with a hinge at the bottom and a crane behind it, and we just made it steeper and steeper and steeper until Spider fell down it in a satisfactory manner, or his stunt double did anyway. We didn't want to get too steep because we didn't want all the dressing to fall off it. This is a beach scene, and you can see Spider there is standing on the beach, and the people he's acting with are the troupe wearing blue, and the you can see the head of somebody, I don't know which character it is on a stick. Um, we had various ways of um, portraying the Na'vi. This was like the most simplest way, or actually a puppet, a large, correctly scaled puppet was probably the simplest if it didn't move, or it would be a troop member, um, or at the most sophisticated, it would be an iPad on a spider cam system. This is the floor of a Metcaina, which you see is a shape to produce the correct terrain level, and a dummy just for scale reference. Uh, this is again the floor of the Metcaina Marui was bouncy, and particularly Tuck used to bounce up and down on it. So to produce that, we just had a woven net so that when the actors were on it, it was springy. The Wind Traders, um, where we just had little elements like this. So anywhere that spider went on the Wind Traders, we would have a little set piece that was camera ready. Everybody's favorite, the swamp. This we built in a tank in Auckland, and it was extremely swampy. It was most unpleasant to work in, so I believe. This is a riverbank. We had lots and lots of wet sets, just of differing sizes, but this typically how we would do something like a riverbank. We would just build a small tank, and this particular one we used real rocks and a little bit of terrain. There it is with the water in it. Oh, this is interesting here. This is the air breather scene where Spider learns he can breathe, which I think everybody sees the movie and they think is all digital, but this is the set, and it was built on clear perspex and backlit from below, so we could make the ground glow. And here's spiders, well, spiders double actually, lying there, and the costume, the makeup department dressed all the mycelium in. That's all actual little threads that are all placed by hand. They're glowing in ultraviolet light here. But that is that. So yeah, so like quite a lot of live action components to something that looks digital. Payakan. So there's old Payakan and his eye, and here's the set, which was just a little bit of his body, and here's his eye. And we would just reconfigure. We had two of these bucks, and we would reconfigure them. But for all the time that the actors or Spider particularly was on Waiakan, this was what we were using. Now inserts. Here's Spider standing on a log, and whenever we went in close, these were shots that were actually shot in camera. So this is like a food preparation shot. Luckily, some of the Sully family, although they're Na'vi, they've got four fingers. So we could use actors painted blue and just go in for close-ups. Here's a children's paddling pool and the camera, the 3D camera, which is two Sony Venice cameras basically cobbled together, and a little bit of a skim one. And so this shot was completely physical, was done in camera of, I think, Jake tying himself to a skim one. And similarly, this was also done in camera, was when Quaritch crushes his skull, his human skull. I think we did it about 30 times, but the actor Kevin Dorman just literally crushed the breakaway skulls. Fire, there was quite a bit of fire. Though this is obviously a digital scene, we built full-size set pieces and we took them up to a tip and spent about 3 days burning them in different ways using flamethrowers and um, videoing them. So just to get lots of reference for Weta of what happens when you really burn marois. Skill suits were fairly challenging. Here's General Ardmore wearing a skill suit. So the only live action component was just the hand and the arm piece. Um, and then just a shadow caster behind. Uh, and then so the actors wearing skill sets were just shot against blue. But when they were in relation to different characters, they have to stand them on a rostrum to get them the correct height. Uh, yeah, it took a lot of figuring out, but we got there in the end because we had to get everything the right height and relationship. Excuse me. Underwater, quite a lot of the underwater scenes had a physical component. Um, Here's, I think, Spider rescuing Quaritch, which was in a set that we dropped into a 6 meter deep dive tank. So here's the set in its dry condition with sand that was actually epoxied in place, so to preserve the clarity of the water, plus coral, plus set pieces. And there you can see it under the water when the water was still. We built lots and lots of these underwater sets. Here where the tank's dry, you can see one of the coral heads. So the blue thing is just the shape of a coral head. And obviously one of the actors went very close to the arm of it. So that was built using real coral and then painted. It looks a bit outlandish here, but the water desaturates the color. But so when, yeah, in the way of water, when people swam close to coral heads, they were actually physical sets. And various wreckage we would drop into this tank and fix to the grid at the bottom, which is work we would do wet because it takes too long to empty the tank and refill it. So we had divers working on all the sets. Um, Rocks and water. So here's Spider and some of his blue friends in the background, but he's sitting on a very real rock on real seaweed with real water. Um, this was a dry scene, and then this is the wet scene. So you see the rock on the left, and then the tank, which we filmed in Auckland, and three excavators with paddles, but animating the water. It looked really good. Like we were very pleased with how realistic it looked. Well, it was real water, so it should look real. There's the diggers. And they were choreographed. They just tried various automated systems, but in the end, it was easiest just to put a person in each digger and somebody just conducted them. Now, what I'll do now is go through quickly with some screen grabs from some sets so you can see a finished frame from the film and then what we actually shot. So this is the Vindicator med bay where Quaritch wakes up, and there you can see the set. So we would only build camera ready what we absolutely needed to save time and money, and then sometimes would have some more correct geometry, but it would be painted blue or grey, and then that would be replaced later. Um, so quite a lot of discussion on what we call EOB or extent of build, and we often can't confirm that until quite late in the process, until um, the virtual scene has been edited and the camera's shot. The amnio vault, this was a zero G scene, so the only physical part of the set was the end of the amnio vault, um, which had a rude nickname, as you can imagine. Aha, there it is there, and there's the puppet that we used for Quaritch, the black figure. Um, it wasn't set up for shooting here. This is just where we were storing it. The High Camp Biolab was a big set that was all built completely shootable in every direction. Here it is on the stage. And inside, sets tended not to have full ceilings of, like most film sets, just so they could be lit. And if we were using the spider cam, as usual with us, plenty of dressing. Flashback back to the head mod shack, which we rebuilt from the first movie. Another flashback from the first movie, the Biolink room. Um, so here's Quaritch and Selfridge. And what we did here was we built the floor and the link units and the consoles, but there was no actual set. There was no walls because we already had those literally in the camera from the first movie. Another little flashback to the biolab. And once again, that was just the furniture on a rostrum. The overground link shot. So this is a frame from the movie, and this is inside the set. We rebuilt the shack, or half of it, and dressed it with greens. It's a really cool set. The amp suit, when Quaritch finds his dead human body in the amp suit, um, where the imp suit was oh, that's actually a frame from the movie, but the imp suit was a little miniature. So you see here the set, and there's dead Quaritch with his dog tags and Natteri's arrow through him. The Gruta cargo bay, and that was just rebuilt from the first movie. The armor bay, where we went very minimal, and so we built none of the architecture. This was just a rostrum, and it did have the full-size amp suit, or one of the amp suits. Um, Construction, walking through a bridgehead when it's under construction, where there's pesky humans and amp suits. So the set was very simple in this case. Everything else was digital. We just built the terrain. And so here's the greensman, Michael White, making tire tracks in the dirt of dirt. Shipyard factory. So you see in the foreground there's humans as well as Quaritch and General Ardmore in an amp suit. So the actual set just consisted of the foreground platform that they were on. Ops Center was a huge set, and it really consisted of the floor and consoles. The hollow floor we built just using black gloss perspex, and then everything else was comped in. So that's the rostrum for it. A little bit of wall, which was meant to be 3D printed concrete, and working out how to do the hollow floor, which pretty much just looked like that. Very complicated floor, as we always have. Just some details. Sea Dragon Bridge. Sea Dragon Bridge we built in Wellington, ran out of time to shoot it there. Struck it, moved it to Auckland, built it in Auckland, ran out of time to shoot it in Auckland, struck it again and took it back to Wellington. So it had quite a few air mile points and was a it wasn't very big, but it was quite a complicated set. One set designer worked on it for a whole year, producing the drawings. for it. So that's the hollow table on the left with the blue. So the 3D graphics were comped in. And then this is the exterior of the Sea Dragon Bridge. Our biggest set was the Sea Dragon aft well deck, which was pretty massive. And as well as that, it had lots of vehicles in it. It had Mako subs, it had the Picador, the Matador. Um, this is the beginning of the construction. You can see the Matador and the Picador parked in the background, and we're just building the set. We placed 400 tons of concrete on the studio floor just to support the steelwork, to support the set. I'll just go through these quickly. Got busier and busier as time went on. Um, that's the back of the Matador on the right and the stern, I should say, I guess, of the Picador on the left. The aft ramp was a set we built. It was a wet set. We built it in a tank, so that's a frame from the movie. This is testing the inflatable life rafts, which we had to get specially made, and this is the set being built in the tank. And whilst filming it, you can see in the background the rescue Picador. We had to paint the Picador overnight from its normal green colour to orange for this scene, and then paint it back green the next day. And then in the end, this it never made the movie, the orange Picador. So that was a waste of time. We shot a whole scene showing them rescuing Scoresby after his arm gets ripped off to establish how he was still alive in the next movie, but in the end, that didn't make the cut. Tilted foredeck of the Sea Dragon. That's the set, and here it is being filmed. For the ambient lighting, if anything was burning, we used these big LED screens you can see in the background. Actually, the LED screens are horizontal, and the flames you can see there, they're on 45-degree mirrors, mylar mirrors that went down into the water. So whenever there was any firelight, we used the lighting came from LED fires. Airlock stairs, simple little set through a beat of action. The thing in the circle is what we call the Zinter or the Z integrator, and that was used to line up the physical world with the virtual world. Um, Before we shot any scene, somebody would go through and Zint all the corners of the set and bring the virtual world into alignment with the physical world. So that was quite an important process. They're just the same sensors that are on, well, virtually the same as on the motion capture suits and also on the camera to record the position of the camera. Sea Dragon decks, lots and lots of just different decks, some flat, some tilted, some dry, some wet, some completely camera ready, some uh, just Zulu sets, just grey. Snub wing, which was a wet set. You can see the LED screens with the showing the fire lighting there. Below decks, the flooded below decks, we built outside at Stone Street. We actually the set was made of shipping containers, actually just painted and dressed with some machinery placed in. And we had 3 shipping containers full of water to the set. Um, this was during the testing. The guy about to be engulfed is Steve Ingham, the special effects coordinator, who assured everybody that it was safe where he was standing. Turned out to be not quite so safe. And this is when we were filming the scene at night. The camera's in the blue bag on the end of the crane, you can see there. And oh, it's a bit hard to make out, but there's three stunties getting washed away. Talcoon drill inside a big talcoon. This is the Amrita, for which we actually used organic honey from Jim's farm, which is almost as expensive as Amrita, it turns out. Holding cell. This was just a cool little set. Here's the process of building it. This goes super fast. The neural lab was one of the larger sets. The We do a lot of CNC cutting for the sets, which we just it's all coded and the drawings are given to the carpenters and that they just it's like doing a jigsaw or building a model kit. They just kind of zip it together and that gives us the right geometry for the complex when there's complex walls. Dragon from the first movie, which we had to rebuild, get going again. The Samson. It had been stored for 10 years and we couldn't find it. And what had happened is in the warehouse where it was stored, somebody had built a wall and it was completely alienated from the rest of the warehouse. We had to demolish the wall to get it out, but it was in fairly poor condition, but restored it. And this is the wrecked salmon, so that's a frame from the movie. And this is the set, which was, yeah, it was a really cool set. Crab suit, which had two modes, a dry mode and a wet mode. So this is about as much as it consisted of in the dry mode. And that's wet. Oh yeah, the water was pumped in through those Perspex tubes for when it flooded. Sea Wasp was a tiny set, it just literally consisted of the cockpit on a small motion base. The rest of it was all digital. The Mako subs, which we only had one. And so this is in the dry mode on a motion base. And this is the wet mode. So those aluminium mullions were machined out of one solid block of aluminium, about the size of a car. So when it floods, the water, that holding tank on the left was lifted up on a crane and the water runs down that, through that 15-inch diameter tube and into the Mako. Um, so it filled up pretty quickly. This is the escape. So this is just testing the little set piece, which we just shot inside a shipping container full of water. The picador was a real working boat. It had two 6.2 litre supercharged V8 Chevy engines, so it produced about 1,000 horsepower. Here it is during the sea trials. Filming it in a very small tank. It was terrifying, actually. And this is it on the motion base. We just pick the whole thing up and attach it to a cradle on a motion base. Little side set. That's the one I sunken picador, which was shot in the tank here in the background. And the Matador was about 55 feet long, but luckily it didn't have to be a working boat. It was just a set. So it was built on the steel space frame. Um, and then a big commercial boat builder in Auckland built the hull for us. The sets all had a lot of electronics on them. I think at one point we had about 12 electricians working for the art department. Harpoon. That's the motion base it went on. And here it is being filmed on the motion base. And the Kestrel was the rotorcraft which we only built the interior of. So like here's a frame from the movie with Spider playing around with the gun. Had a steel frame, an aluminium structure, and then we started off building it out of fiberglass, but we changed to 3D printing just because we came up with a more environmentally friendly way of producing the complex parts, which was 3D printing. Um, Quite a complicated wee set. All the consoles all lit up and all the buttons you could push and they beeped and lit up, and one of the set designers having fun. And that's it.